So our first presenter this afternoon is Kellee Forkenbrock, who is the Public Services Librarian at North Liberty Public Library. And I'm going to get the presentation started and share my screen. I am still remembering how screen sharing works. All right, let me know if you do not see what is there, and I'm going to go on mute.
All right, I see it. Hi, everyone. I'm going to start my little timer as well so I can stay on track. I am Kellee Forkenbrock with North Liberty Library here in North Liberty, Iowa. Before I begin my Librarian Lightning Round presentation, I just wanted to just thank LaMonica Wiggins, Steve Kramer, Nancy, everyone who, and the entire team at ELC for putting this conference together. I'm very happy to be here. We're going to be talking about how to engage BIPOC women leaders. So we'll get into what we're talking about next here. Next slide, please. Oh, I think the slides went away. Let me see.
Yeah, because I don't know how to share screen anymore.
Oh, okay. I do have it up here. I have it up here if we want to share the screen that way, if that's helpful. I mean, if you'd like me to go through them. Oh,
I found it. Okay.
Fabulous. All right, great. So here's the agenda. Here, I'll start by just introducing myself very quickly, giving you some insight into my professional background. Then we'll talk a bit about allyship and bias before detailing some methods that you can use as soon as today to begin intentional collaborations with the BIPOC businesswomen in your community. I'll leave my contact information at the end. I love connecting on LinkedIn, so please feel free to do so. And then I'll allow time for questions at the end. So let's go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. All right, so a little bit about me. I have a bachelor's in liberal arts with a minor in marketing. 21 years after earning that degree, I began my graduate studies, which happened this fall at the University of Iowa's SLIS program, which is School of Library Information and Sciences. I'm concentrating in public librarianship with a certificate in digital humanities. One of my personal goals is to combine community engagement and outreach with digital tools. And before coming to North Liberty Library, I spent my first 2 decades of my professional career in the private sector, working in marketing, project management, and sales. So I bring both professional experience in both the public and private sectors to this conversation. Now, while I have been at the library for roughly 2.5 years, 2021 has definitely been a year for the books, no pun intended. We were awarded a $3,000 grant from ALA to begin what we call Lighthouse in the Library, which is a community conversations event that we hold quarterly here at the library. I also recently earned a class certification in business outreach for the public librarian. We hosted a First Fridays Coffee Connections with our local chamber group, Iowa City Area Business Partnership. And we were selected by ALA to do a case study for the very grant that we launched for our community conversation. So again, really melding in that community outreach element. We'll really get into that more so in the future slides. Next slide, please. All right, so allyship, we hear this a lot. What exactly is it? So according to Nicole Nafoyam-Hara, who is the director of diversity programs at the Mayo Clinic, allyship is when a person of privilege works in solidarity and partnership with a marginalized group of people to help take down systems that challenge the group's basic rights, equal access, and ability to thrive in society. So what does that look like in our libraries? What does that look like in our organizations? Well, for one, here at the library, we provide meeting room spaces. We provide room spaces for people who are studying, for our students. As you know, we're located just 15 minutes away from a Big Ten university. So we have lots of students coming in. We have 2 school districts that we serve in our community as well. So we serve meeting room spaces for those students. Also for people who are looking to co-work. We facilitate conversations within the community, such as Lighthouse in the Library. We promote local services on our bulletin boards and on our social media. And of course, we engage with empathy. Now that includes internal training and external events as well, just really leading with empathy. Next slide, please. All right. We also hear a lot about explicit versus implicit bias. So what's the difference? Explicit bias is the conscious action, the overt behavior. So when you see, for lack of a better term, when you see burning crosses, when you see people picketing against equal rights, when there's name calling, when there's exclusion, harassment, that is explicit bias. The implicit bias, on the other hand, is what a lot of our women who are out in this world and doing BIPOC women in business are seeing. They're seeing unconscious actions of bias. They're seeing contradiction of values and beliefs and interfering with and compromising engagement. So the question is, how do libraries de-bias their outreach efforts to BIPOC businesswomen? Next slide, please. Well, there's two things that we can do. Some strategies that we can engage in, that you can engage as soon as today. Prep for your outreach. Getting up and just going to outreach to our businesswomen without preparation can lead to missed engagement opportunities. So review the patron needs assessment. If your library is currently taking survey information, review that information to see how we can better serve our community. Research these businesses and websites as well as their social media. Go to their social media and check out their social media feeds, not just the websites. Also, list at least 2 possible collaborations you could have with this person based on your research, and then make your call. Some outreach examples could be to frame the conversation as a service chat. Maybe invite them to the library to see if there are events that align with our mission. So if you have a library event that's happening that aligns with their mission, invite them to that. Schedule a pop-up visit. And of course, say their names in rooms. It is very important to make sure that you're saying the names of women of color in rooms when you're talking about business opportunities. Next slide, please. Oh boy, 20 seconds left. All right, so that's my contact information. I love talking about this subject, not only as a librarian, but as a woman of color. So please feel free to hit me up via email, LinkedIn, or on our website, northlibertylibrary.org, or just give me a call at 319-626-5775. And that's 7 minutes. Oops, that was my timer.
Thank you so much. Mark, what questions? We've got about 3 minutes for questions.
Looking at the chat and I don't see any yet, so we're going to welcome the questions, but I have one for you, Kellee. Can you talk about a little bit about when you talk about engage with empathy? I hadn't heard that phrase before. I'm interested in hearing how you do that.
Absolutely. So empathy is something that we really pride ourselves on here at North Liberty Library, and it really does come from the top down. Ginny Garner, who's actually, I think she's one of the participants in today's conference, absolutely encourages us to move with empathy. It's something that became very evident during this past pandemic. We were one of the first libraries to require masking up, to provide masks for our constituents, and we were one of the ones who to begin offering services such as curbside pickup. Just really understanding your patrons, understanding their needs. I think that's where empathy starts, and then trying to serve those needs, and then recognizing that if you physically in the building cannot serve or provide a resource for the library, make sure that you are able to find them third-party resources. And that's why community outreach is so important. It's so important to have those engaged relationships with other organizations and business women, so that if you can't provide the service as a librarian or for your library or as library staff, that you can reach out to someone else who can.
Thank you so much. I'm looking here. Can you share an example of a collaboration that came from this engagement?
Oh, absolutely. The most recent example I can give is our Lighthouse in the Library conversation series that I mentioned at the top of the presentation. Our events are paneled events, and we rely on our relationships with our local food pantry, with our school boards to sit on those panels. We are planning our 3rd event now, but the last 2 in April and August. we relied on those relationships to have them come in and speak to topics such as in April, it was about food and wellness inequity in our community. So having the local food pantry's presence there, having the presence of a local yoga studio, a businesswoman who runs a yoga studio who can talk about wellness, having those relationships there really expanded the conversation, and it also gave those resources as options to our patrons as well. So I think community conversations are one of the best ways to collaborate with organizations in your area so that you're giving them a platform and you're providing expanded access to your patrons.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kellee. Really appreciate your time with us.
Thank you, Nancy.
All right. Our next presenter is Ginny Sterpka. Sterpka, I apologize. Should have asked how to pronounce your name.
Sterpka, yes.
Sterpka, who is the program manager at Creative Startups. And I'm going to set the timer and give you my fancy little 2-minute sign.
Let's see.
I'm going to wait till you get your screen share set up before I start timing you.
There we go. Great. Well, thank you all for having me. And Kellee, it was great to hear. I always love hearing from libraries and what they're doing, because we aren't a library, but we work with libraries. So I love hearing what different libraries are doing around the country. So I work for an organization, Creative Startups. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And we run a program called Libraries as Launchpads. So our focus is on entrepreneurs. And we work with libraries because we feel like they are kind of the missing link for underserved entrepreneurs who aren't necessarily getting support from some of the other business resources out there. So I'm going to share a few simple steps that we feel any libraries can take to offer better support to local entrepreneurs and small businesses, and a little bit of why we feel like it's a role that libraries should take on. So agenda, why libraries should take on this role, a little bit more about me and the Libraries as Launchpads program. And then these are kind of the 3 main things we see that are helpful for libraries to do: gain a better understanding of your local ecosystem, questions to ask to gain awareness of the challenges in your community, and ideas for filling the gaps in your local ecosystem. So the reason why we feel like libraries should take on this role is because libraries are resource equalizers. And these are things, like I said, you as librarians, I'm sure most of these things you fully understand and know. These are things we share when we're talking with people besides just libraries as well. With libraries we work in, we often find like people in economic development department and those kind of places, they don't understand why libraries should take on these roles. So that's why we really focused in on what we feel like some of those reasons are. And I think these are things, if you're having trouble sometimes articulating that to other people who don't understand it, it's a good place to kind of start. So then, and libraries respond to the needs of your community. And libraries are information literacy experts. And this is one of the biggest reasons why we feel like libraries are helpful in this regard, because so many of the entrepreneurs we work with, we hear time and time again that they think their largest barrier to getting started is funding before they even know who their customers are. But one of the biggest reasons businesses fail is due to lack of market demand. So we think libraries with a little bit of training on what businesses need to succeed could be able to help people get over that hump, so that they could get into a business and potentially get funding once they know a little bit more about their customers. So I'm Ginny, as I was introduced. I'm the community-based programs manager at Creative Startups, and then I also direct the Libraries as Launchpads program. Creative Startups has been working with entrepreneurs since 2007. And we started the Libraries as Launchpads program in 2018. And we work closely with libraries to bring hyper-localized support to small business and entrepreneurs. So understanding the entrepreneur's journey is really important for libraries supporting entrepreneurs. Lots of times entrepreneurs might come in and they're not really sure where to start. So we suggest that librarians really understand that journey, and then they understand their local ecosystem. As we tell libraries that we work with, we don't expect you to be a business expert. We expect you to be a resource expert and know what's available in your community and what's available other places online, books, magazines, whatever else it may be. So I'm just going to do really quickly entrepreneur's journey, why they start, some by necessity and some by opportunity. Those kind of give you a lot of ideas of where they're going to be coming from. Some people might have more resources to put into it, where others might be kind of starting with nothing. Generally, with the stages, we see resources are what people coming to libraries more often, and not so much the growth, expansion, mature stages, and exit. It's more of these people who have an idea, they're thinking about it, or they might have a product that they created and are trying to figure out how to bring it to customers. So very important part, and Kellee brought this up too, which I liked to hear, is really knowing what are the resources available in your community, because it's not all going to be available in the library itself. So what are the other things out there in the community that you can then direct people to? Are there knowledge experts, other business resources, maybe other entrepreneurs that might be in the same industry, that kind of thing. And we all say this is an iterative process. We don't expect that you know all of them, and they change as well. So and sometimes might be an entrepreneur comes in with a new question that you haven't dealt with before, so you might do a little research and find a new resource in the ecosystem. So then another important thing to create equitable resources is figuring out what are the challenges in your community. Okay, I'm gonna move faster and figure out how library can potentially fill them, because it might be that there's some people that are just being overlooked. There's a certain group of people that might not be getting the help they need. So that the best way to do that is to talk and listen to entrepreneurs. And so this already mentioned, I'll just skip through this. So then after that, it's filling the gaps that you've become aware of in your community. And so this is where you really are helping the entrepreneurs that are underserved, because they're the ones that aren't getting the help. So you're listening, figuring out where are the gaps, what aren't people able to access, what maybe there's barriers to access, maybe it's not available in the community, maybe it's only available online, and a certain group, a certain person doesn't have the know-how to get online, lots of different things. And so again, get feedback and iterate. You might put something out there and it's not what's needed, but just listen to the feedback for the entrepreneurs. Yeah, and look, where does your library fit into this? One of the biggest things we've noticed with successful entrepreneurs is they're always building their networks. So they're looking at who can support me in this journey, how can I support other people, but really building that network is one of the most important things. And getting connected, people who are willing to reach out and ask people to be mentors. We see higher success rates in entrepreneurs that are asking for support. So a couple of things other libraries are doing. We actually have a monthly call that we do, and have libraries share things they're working on. And one of the libraries has started a speaker series that they have over 100 people. Every time that they host it, they said they've had to start doing registration because they didn't have enough room, which was really awesome to hear. Some that have started some incubation programs in their libraries. Peer meetups for entrepreneurs that want to talk just specifically with other entrepreneurs, and workstations. Those are some of the ones people in our calls have started. Yes, and would love to talk to anyone. Like I said, I love hearing what libraries are doing. And if anyone is interested in joining for our monthly calls, it's the last Thursday of the month. We're not doing it this month just because of the holidays. But would love to have some of you join, and you can just reach out to me if you'd like to, and I can add you onto that list. But yes, I think I was just about in time.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I think we have time for one, maybe two questions.
Okay.
I'm looking at the chat now and I don't see any. So I was born with my hand raised. I always have questions. So I'm interested in hearing what are the common gaps that you see in the ecosystem? Because sometimes it's helpful to know a little bit before you go in, before you do the analysis, what you might be seeing?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm going to be completely honest. I wouldn't say it's the same everywhere.
Right. No, I'm not. I don't.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to know what might be
Yeah.
out there.
I think so. New Mexico, where I'm located, is a very rural state. So one of the things we do say is lack of access to online resources or know-how of online resources in some of the communities here. Things we've noticed in other communities, we've been working with a lot of libraries in southeastern Florida where they have a large Spanish-speaking population, is just people being able to access the resources in Spanish.
Okay.
So those are some of the big ones we've definitely noticed. Other ones are just people who are new entrepreneurs that just don't feel comfortable with business lingo enough to go and ask the questions in the traditional business places. So we've actually worked with some entrepreneurs who've gotten turned away by some of the other small business support because they didn't think that they had an actual business when they went in and were talking to them. But they've gone on to create a successful business. It's just they didn't have the right lingo, and they felt like they'd been turned away when really I think they'd probably been asked questions they didn't know how to answer.
What do you call the last Thursday of the month events?
Entrepreneurship librarian call. So libraries interested in entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Okay. We love that bold, completely clear advertising, no ambiguity. So thank you so much.
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing with us this afternoon, Jenny. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
For sure. All right. We are moving right along in our zippy lightning rounds to our next presenters. We're pleased to have Seema and Neil, who are both at the Business and IP Center at the British Library. And on a personal note, the Business and IP Center at the British Library is indirectly responsible for me becoming an entrepreneurship librarian.
Oh, wow.
So we are pleased to have y'all here today.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to go.
Yes, once y'all start your screen share, I'll start the timer.
Okay, I'm going to go first, and then Seema's going to take over. So let me just get that up. Let me start my timer. So yes, can I summarize the Business and IP Centre in 4 minutes? Probably not, but let me go. So British Library used to be known as the Library of Last Resort. It was a very exclusive club, but now we are open to anyone and everyone who wants to do research on whatever the topic. We got the idea of opening the Business and IP Centre actually from the New York Public Library, their Sybil service on Madison Avenue. So they suggested we do it, and we said, let's have a go. And so how did we start? Well, 2006 was when we opened, and like all good businesses, we asked our customers what they wanted from us. And the starting point was, of course, our centre with the information that we had, free access to over £50 million worth of information, including these internationally recognised databases. But of course, how do you use those? Well, with the help of us, my team, business and intellectual property specialists on hand to help people understand what information we had, how to use it. And because of that, because it was quite complicated, we had to offer training, hands-on training on how to use the databases. But what we found was people needed more than that. They wanted to know how to write a business plan. So we had to learn to be presenters. Now, I know most people in the States are more comfortable with this, but in the UK, librarians don't have a lot of experience of presenting, and it's not something they feel they were born to do. But we all had to start doing it, which was a bit scary. But then people said that wasn't enough. What they wanted us to be was business advisors. So the customer's always right. We had to train as business advisors. And yeah, at first we were terrified. Talk about being out of your comfort zone. But as with all things, the more you do it, and with the training and help from experienced people, we got better at it. And for many of us, it's actually the favorite part of our job because we really engage. And surprise, surprise, it's actually built on librarian skills, the good old reference interview. It's like a reference interview with knobs on. You have the time to sit with somebody and really get to the bottom of what they need. But also we had to do promotional events, evening events, networking. We had to recruit a small army of experts in business who would come in and deliver workshops. We managed to find an invention resident who came in 1 day a month to offer free advice, and he's seen over 1,000 inventors now, which means that we're known as a safe haven for inventors. But of course, coming back to proper library stuff, we used to have these guides which were difficult to navigate, so we redid them, we rewrote them, we made them user-friendly, particularly for those entrepreneurs with dyslexia who are common, and we put them on our website. But of course, we had to let people know that we had a service. So we had adverts in the underground in London, on posters, on buses, and people started coming in. We used the lean startup approach to help focus what we do, the good old business model canvas, the value proposition canvas, and that leads us to our USP, access to premium information, giving users the knowledge and confidence to make sound decisions, skills development. So what we do in a sentence is we provide business and intellectual property specialist information to support face-to-face and remote customers. Our unique selling point is we understand how intellectual property and business go together. I was just doing a one-to-one this afternoon explaining how somebody could get a trademark to help protect her business. We help inventors find out the size of their market for their invention, and we explore which intellectual property options should be most appropriate to help protect a business. That's my alarm, and I've got to my last slide, which is the business and IP center. If you've got an idea, we'll help you turn it into a business. So I'm going to hand over to Seema at this point.
Yeah, sure. Good. Thank you, Neil. I haven't spoken so much before because I've actually got a sore throat. So hopefully I'm coming through clear. So I'm Seema. I work with Neil at the Business and IP Center, and I have been there 9 years. He's been there longer than me, but a lot of it is what I enjoy about being a business librarian, engaging with people coming in to start their business. I have a business information background. I've worked in business information for 30 years, but we do great things. But Neil has been there from the beginning, and I came in about 9 years ago. So my side of the talk will talk about how we sort of engage with other local community aspects of the business, local areas, as well as across the national network. So this is the photograph of Neil speaking to one of our Innovating for Growth clients who was on a program to help grow their business. So we have funded and money to actually help growing businesses as well. And over the years, we've also helped people with inventions, such as Guy Jeremiah, who's created the Oyo Cup. And currently, we're actually just finishing a project called a Startup in London Libraries. And this is something that is, we got the permission to obviously, and sponsorship from the City Hall, the Mayor of London, which is also the Greater London Authority, where we actually got funding to actually work with 10 local boroughs to encourage them to have more business support services in their 10 local libraries. So this is an example of a success story that we've had people going in and obviously using the support in their local library. As I mentioned, we do have international projects as well. We have the Innovating for Growth project, which was funded by the European Union. We're hoping the project will continue regardless of what the political situation here is in the UK. Over the years, we've helped hundreds of businesses that have been assisted. They've already established businesses. So what we've offered them is access to expertise, and we focus on areas that they wanted to actually grow, be it business strategy, branding, intellectual property, those sort of things, any sort of growth areas that they needed, we help them with it. And also we have, in the pandemic, things have changed as well. So we understand that people need support. We understand it's a challenging time for business. So we have a program with government support called Reset and Restart. And for example, this is one of our long-term partners called Precious Nights. It's a networking event, which is normally in person, but because of the pandemic, it's happening online, where we have successful entrepreneurs giving advice and support for their business. So we do lots of events in terms of in reaching out to communities and programs. This is one of the Startup in London libraries that we do. So we have a whole day of programming where the business librarians help with intellectual property, but also about business planning and for their idea. And there's a series of events such as finance, sales, marketing, masterclass that is part of this outreach program with the British Library. And as Neil has said, we cover all these things. So all people need is a free reader pass. So we're free to people to use at the point of entry. We have access to thousands of pounds of databases. We have a great business collection. The British Library is a national library. So we collect, we collect materials anyway. So you might as well make use of the resources. The Business and IB network has grown across the UK. And we offer all these specialist skills and expert partners and networking events for because of these projects that we have. Oops, sorry, I think that's gone. Let me just go back to that slide. So this is an event we did recently for the COP26 with our local community. We had an event talking about ethical fashion, and we also work with the community engagement team at the British Library to obviously support businesses locally and to encourage them to get in, because we're right in the heart of an urban centre in London, and we obviously want to make residents use us as a centre. Sorry, I'm having trouble with the sharing the next screen. But more than that, I want to give you some.
So sorry, our time is close to up, and I want to make sure that we have time. There's a really great question in the chat that I wanted to make sure we have time for.
Can I just give you some top level statistics? Since 2006, we've had 1 million people come through our doors. We've had 150,000 SMEs using the funding programs from the European Regional Development Funds. We have about 500 alumni, people who've used the Innovating for Growth Club, and we've reached diverse audiences. 63% are women, 43% are Black and Asian minority communities. We don't have so much of a BIPOC because obviously we're British, and we have 12% disabled people users. So we're ready for your question.
Great.
You want me to answer that one because I can see it in the chat?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And we actually had 15 librarians come from across the country who are developing business IP centres in their own regions and their cities and towns. And it is the most common question. People are really quite uncomfortable, nervous, terrified of having business people come into their libraries and ask them business questions. But actually, it's not as bad as people think it's going to be. Even though we've been doing this for many, many years, we don't have expert business knowledge. We can't do a cash flow spreadsheet, but we know where to find the information. So that's really, it always comes back to those information skills. We know where to find the information. We've got fantastic databases. We know how to use them. And that's really the answer, is that we're not business experts, but we do know where to find that business information that's going to help our customers.
How are we doing on time, Nancy?
We are unfortunately out of time for any other questions, but thank you all so much for your talk.
Thank you. This is fascinating.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
it.
Bye.
Thanks, y'all. Okay, our penultimate lightning talk presentation is from Leander, Croker, and Hannah Hemphill, who are both at Durham County Library. And so I am running slides for them and got distracted by things. So while I'm getting the screen sharing going, and of course PowerPoint isn't responding. So
it's fine.
Do you want me to try to share it on my side?
Are you able to do that?
I think so. We'll see.
Okay, I can only have one PowerPoint open at a time because my computer is very old.
Oh, oh gosh.
Okay.
Yes. So I think, can you see this PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So once y'all start, I'm going to start the timer and put myself on mute.
All right. I'm having issues finding where I'm supposed to be.
Can I hit presentation mode up in the top left? See if that works.
There we go.
For you. Okay.
All right,
yes. Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Leander Croker. I'm the Business Services Unit Manager for Durham County Library. And so our presentation is Leaving the Desk, Outreach for Building Effective Partnerships. And what we've been hearing kind of in this lightning talk session is Partnerships, what do we do? How do we do that? And as librarians, naturally, we are not the most confident people with getting from behind that desk and doing outreach. And that's what I had to do when Durham County Library closed for transformation in 2017. Our main library closed and I was put into Northgate Mall, which was like mini malls in America, kind of nothing was in there. And they put a maker lab in there and said, Leander, do this programming and do whatever you want. And the whatever I wanted turned into business and entrepreneurship related programming. Over that time, it was amazing. I had great partnerships with the ELC, but how did I get them? And it was leaving the desk. And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
And I'm Hannah Hemphill. I'm the business services librarian at Durham County Library. And I come from a background of public libraries with strong outreach missions, which has allowed me to see firsthand the importance of going outside of the library to reach groups who might not think to go to the library to have their needs met. And so on this next slide, we're going to give you a little bit of background for the why we're doing what we're doing here at Durham County. And so you can see here a quote from research by local Dr. McCoy, where he's focused on entrepreneurship ecosystems and refers specifically to Durham and Atlanta in this quote. But Durham does have a rich history of Black entrepreneurship, with Black Wall Street serving as an economic powerhouse in the late 18 and early 1900s. But in researching entrepreneurial trends in Durham, it becomes clear that these benefits are no longer seen in the community. So we really need to create more inclusive entrepreneurial communities by providing additional resources. And so from that, a disparity study from 2015 showed the city and county of Durham only spent 2.66% on MWBE-owned firms across all procurement categories. So despite the history of having a Black entrepreneurial hub, entrepreneurs of color experience higher levels of inequity than their white counterparts.
Okay, so the main question is, when it comes to entrepreneurship and what I faced personally when we started doing doing business related topics, even at the library, is why is the library in this space? And the main thing that I always like to sell is Durham County Library serves as the equity bridge between atypical entrepreneurs and established entrepreneur communities. In Durham, we have a huge tech startup. We have American Underground, we have the Frontier, we have all these spaces, great and support. However, our traditional library users who have ideas, who have businesses, who have side hustles, don't feel welcome in those areas. Typically, because they could walk in and be like, I look like nobody in this space. I don't know anybody in this space, and I don't have a tech startup. You know, my husband's in IT, and they always say Durham is the Silicon Valley of the South. However, if I'm baking cakes, the American Underground cannot help me. So when it comes to librarianship and being that bridge builder, what do we need to do? We need to build our confidence. Again, a lot of us in the libraries are very shy. We're used to people coming up to us at that big desk and asking us their questions, as opposed to us pounding the pavement and being like, hey, we're here, we can help you. Or, hey, you're a bank, you do this type of work with these entrepreneurs, come partner with us. So what I did, as I was a very shy kid and my mom put me in Girl Scouts, and I went out and I went and learned how to knock on doors. And that's basically what I had to do. I went to banks, I went to Durham Tech and asked them and said, we need help in this library because this is the community that we're trying to reach. And I had space to leverage, and that's what you have. So with going out there, we can build confidence and relationships.
Yeah, and in building these relationships, the library is in a really unique position because we have the library's infrastructure and our wide reach in the community where we can work to establish goodwill with our partners. So the biggest thing that the library has to offer is free space for our potential partners. So we have this brand new building in Durham that has auditorium, meeting rooms, study rooms, and a wonderful co-working space that we can offer to our partners. And in addition to that, we can advertise their programs and resources as a low stakes way to continue providing support. So that's, we have an Instagram account, we can put their information up on bulletin boards and flyers, that kind of information can be shared that way. Additionally, we have to continue our internal and external outreach. So internal outreach involves establishing positive relationships with other departments and branches, So volunteering to do collaborative programming and making sure other locations are trained to provide similar services or have the resources to share. And then with external outreach, we're just constantly reaching out to potential partners to let them know that we are here and we want to support them.
And with building relationships with internal staff, a lot of staff will never want to leave. And that's the staff you say, hey, would you like my extra desk shift so I can go talk to these people so we can bring them into the library? So maintaining positive relationships, the power of yes. A lot of times the library is like, oh, I don't know, is this different? This is, say yes, open that meeting room up if you can, use your outside space. We have a lot of that here in Durham now. Quid pro quo, this is not an HR issue. You can do a this for that. Yes, we can have a workshop for you in this space if you do this webinar for us really quick, and always be ready to step in and help, whether it's tabling an event, if they just need somebody to come in and do library card outreach. That's an amazing thing that we always like to do and offer to our community that can lead to impactful programming.
Yeah, and once we've worked to establish these relationships, we can then leverage the partnerships to create the impactful programming that we want to see for our community. So the internal partnerships looks like Library Fest, collaborative programs, like we did a headshot program. We have local government partnerships with the city county initiative of Innovate Durham. And we have a new partnership with the incoming mayor O'Neill for 2022. And then we also have our community partnerships. And that looks like workshops with Grow with Google, community-led workshops. That just means like the Small Business Center at Durham Tech and the SBDTC, allowing them to come in and have those workshops and give that information.
And for any libraries that are just starting into the entrepreneurial space, think about impact. I had programs where I had one person in there who would come to every single program I did, and I could see their business grow. And I have a story that I always like to tell is they came and asked a question about shutting their business down with one of our subject matter experts. And when they started talking about how that's a very personal subject, so I stepped away and they were like, no, Leander, you've been with us in the beginning. And so we want to be here for you. So think about the impact and not the number of people that show up to your programs. And if anybody has any questions, we are ready.
Awesome. Well, there is one, there's a question right now. What happens when you're successful?
At outreach or?
Yeah, at outreach. It doesn't say more than that, but I'm just,
so we'll go with that. What happened in Durham is that with our partnerships with BB&T, which is now SunTrust, now Truist, we were awarded a $75,000 grant to continue all of our business related programming and entrepreneurship, which was amazing to me because I was a party of one. Now I'm a party of four and a five, and I'm excited. But it was one of those things. I did all my business related programming with $0 and zero help because it was just me at that time. So when you're successful, somebody will appreciate it and they'll recognize it. So the worst thing that can happen is somebody throws money at you.
That's not a bad thing. That's not a terrible thing. I'm looking to see if there's any other questions. I think I had a quick question if we had time, Nancy. When you're planning your outreach, how do you do that strategically? Because you only have so much time.
With outreach, it depends on where we were going. We would partner and we would go to Duke, and we would just, I had the luxury of being in a non-traditional location. I was in the mall, so when the location was open, it's because I was there. When it was closed, it was because I was gone. And so as long as I let my superiors know where I was going to be and what I was going to do, I had kind of extensive time. But now that we're in a location, it's just different. And it's really getting that buy-in from your fellow librarians to kind of cover that desk and what that looks like. Because to me, the trade-off has always been, you can come with me. And it's like, no, take as long as you need. And that's always worked out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leander and Hannah. In the chat, there was a lot of Zoom,
a lot
Zoom
of kudos.
applause.
Yeah, a lot of kudos. I should have mentioned that. Sorry.
Yeah. Also, I'm just down the road in Chapel Hill. I need to talk to y'all more. All right. I need to come back. It's been a few months. I think I have an overdue book. Our final lightning round, our lightning talk round wraps up with Mariah McGregor, who is at Northwestern University. Mariah, can we hear you? No, unfortunately.
She's not muted in Zoom. So Mariah, might be a local issue, I think, with your mic.
Is that better?
Yes, we can hear you.
There we go. Yeah. As long as we're getting all the technical issues out of the way as soon as possible. Let me share my screen with y'all. Get that started. And everyone can see that all right? Excellent. Wonderful. So thank you, everyone. As Nancy mentioned, my name is Mariah McGregor. I'm the Business Entrepreneurship Librarian at Northwestern University Libraries, and I'll just be discussing my partnership and ongoing research with Professor Heather Aranye, who is a lecturer and faculty at Farley Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, as well as an ambassador and advisor to the Buffett Institute on global innovation. Heather, unfortunately, wasn't able to make it today, so because she is teaching, but she has sent along a short video message to share with you all. So hopefully this will work.
Mariah, you might need to activate your computer sharing sound. I didn't say that right, sorry. Make sure that you're sharing audio as well as the video.
I thought we did that already. I apologize, everyone, for some of the technical difficulties here.
I've paused the timer so that this does not count against your
Thank
7
you.
minutes.
I apologize. We can continue on. Heather just wanted to take a moment to thank everybody and share all of that. We had some last minute changes to our schedule. She was hoping to be here for the Q&A, but unfortunately she had some cancellations at the last minute, but just wanted to share that. But we can continue on to focus on exactly what we are talking about. When we talk about money and mentorship and mobility, what we are referring to specifically is the intentional and specific design and adaptation of course materials that we have for Heather's class, Principles of Entrepreneurship, or Entrepreneurship 225. We work with students who are in the early stages of starting their entrepreneurial education. And what Heather specifically does is actually ask them the questions of what they want to learn about in their course. So they specifically focus on whether or not they are interested in ensuring that students want to focus on whether they have a startup idea already or are interested in focusing on jobs and internships in the future. Where I come in as a library instructor is to provide more information on research literacy, how to find these resources that are most useful to the needs that students have expressed. Specifically, Heather and I meet before any of this information gets shared out to the students, so I can adjust this one shot to ensure that it meets the areas that the students are focusing on. So specifically, we try and call out the need for funding, mentorship, and skill building that library resources can help build and connect students to, and how that can apply to any business venture. We are really careful to ensure that we focus with students that this does not need to be something that is super well planned out or already established, or something that's specifically only in tech. We want to make sure that they feel as though they can tackle anything from any point that they are at. So far as results, in the past 4 terms that we've been working together, we have had nearly 100% participation in research consults at the library. I've had 98.7% of student groups come and discuss with me exactly how much they need to work. I've also seen a large increase in return patrons to the library, both during class and also after they have finished class, and in a few cases after the students have graduated, which is everything you love to see as a librarian, that they want to come back and talk to you. It's a great feeling. Heather herself has noted there are improvements in classwork and presentations, in particular the pitch competition that wraps up the end of that class. And our partnership was recognized at the campus level in spring of 2021 regarding the work that we have done together, in particular our research. But how did I actually get a faculty member to invite me back on a regular basis and build this kind of relationship? It was pretty simple. In fall of 2020, I was running a very short session for the entrepreneurship faculty orientation. And I mentioned a project I had completed over the summer, a LibGuide page on resources for marginalized students. Specifically, I called out the mentorship and funding opportunities in the Chicago area for BIPOC and LGBTQ+ students that exist both on and off campus. Heather took notice of that, as well as some of the other ways that I could help students, and invited me to her class to teach a one-shot. And our partnership kind of naturally evolved from there. We have a shared focus on adaptive and responsive pedagogy for our students, and we try to bear that out through universal design for learning and try to keep the materials that we are teaching them relevant to their goals. And that involves acknowledging their lived experiences and their expectations as they look towards graduation and careers in an economic system that isn't quite exactly what they were expecting, to say the least. And currently we are working on conducting surveys and interviews with students who have completed Principles of Entrepreneurship to identify effective practices in our teaching and improve instruction in the future. And we're hoping that that might include some publishing down the line. But what does that actually look like? Specifically, this is an example of one of the slides that I spend a lot of time on in Principles of Entrepreneurship. I just walk through these bullet points of what specifically I can provide the students with and tell them that I am a hub of information. And while I can certainly help them find a lot of information, they're the ones who understand their needs best. I'm clear about what my limits are and what I can provide, and they in turn reciprocate with a lot of honesty and vulnerability of what they need. If that means that I'm pointing them towards organizations that support their identities and are off campus, I think that's fine. I really strongly feel that it's important to get students engaged with the community. It's important to find what's best for them and not what is always easiest or most accessible at the click of a button at Northwestern. To wrap up a bit, why I want to teach this way, it's for a number of reasons. I believe it's good pedagogy to ask students what they need, as has been mentioned multiple times throughout this whole conference. But it also is a lot of work to me to challenge my own plans and assumptions about what students need, about how to best address those as well. And what I keep hearing from my students is not that they lack skills or knowledge of basic business practices, but a lot of them feel like they lack the confidence to make it, quote unquote, especially in the face of a very predominantly white and very stereotypically wealthy institution. So helping them build that confidence and showing them what I can provide, I think has made me a better librarian. I really believe, especially on focusing in ways to help BIPOC, LGBTQ+ and otherwise marginalized students, I've gotten better at addressing all of my students' needs. So I really do try to encourage them to be better at open web searching, better at ensuring that they can work with each other to support themselves and work with professionals to ensure that they're growing as entrepreneurs. You know, we support this whole range of entrepreneurship, and really what I try to focus on is ensuring that we are focusing on what we can provide them as librarians, which for me is most often funding and making sure that they have access to mentorship and really providing them with the kind of mobility and skills that they want and that they need to ensure that they are going to be successful for years to come. And I think I just got it on time. So thank you. I will take questions.
I'm looking through the chat and I see lots of chat, but not lots of questions. But of course, I always have one because that's just how I am. It sounds like you're doing what we tell entrepreneurs to do, is to talk to the customer, right? To determine their needs. So how do you fold that into your work? Because sometimes that can seem really challenging to do and to fit that into the flow of your work.
Mm-hmm. I honestly dedicate a lot of time to this. This is something that I specifically carve out time to do, which can be tricky and sometimes results in some lack of time, but I will often spend over an hour and a half with students, which can be hard to schedule, but they are often willing to give me that kind of time, which is really phenomenal. This is outside of the classroom experience, but then just sort of hanging out and chatting with you. Yes, absolutely, for sure. Okay. I found if you give students, especially entrepreneurs, the window, they will absolutely continue to talk about their passions for as long as you will let them talk.
There's no doubt about that. Let me just take a look at the chat. Thank you. I don't see anything else right now. Did you see anything, Nancy?
Just a comment from Jennifer Botcher to please consider publishing in Ticker. And then I was about to type in the chat that to capture all the great work that if anyone's interested in bouncing ideas off of or potentially collaborating, I always enjoy working on writing projects. So
thanks for your answer, Mariah. This is really an important part, that a piece that I feel like I'm missing right now. And I understand that I really need to take that time and dive into it.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much.
And Steve commented, yeah, thank you so much, Mariah. I really appreciate all of our lightning round presenters. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us this afternoon. I know that I've got a lot of things kind of scribbled on my notepad here to to ponder on over winter break here in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, everyone.
So I'm going to turn it over to the next people who are in charge.
Thank you, Mark and Nancy. And we're going to turn over to Emmy to facilitate our closing discussion, which is not recorded. So